Hi there, and welcome back to another episode on Let's Talk Football Careers with myself, Barry, and today's guest, Mark Warburton. How you doing, Mark?
All good, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us. You're over in the USA, over 3,000 miles away.
I'm in sunny Jacksonville, a little bit warmer than Scotland, Barry.
Just a tad, like you'll not be missing the weather if anything. You were over here just last week, though. I seen you on Sky. Was that over here or?
Yeah, I was at the LMA dinner on the Tuesday night, which is always a magnificent occasion, and then did some media work on a Wednesday and Thursday, and flew back on a Friday. So it's just lots of air miles.
Brilliant. Well, I've wrote down a series of questions. Some of them are from fans, and some of them I've put together myself. So I'll just start from the start, Marky. So how did you make the transition into management? Because I found out from my research that you were a City trader first as well.
Yeah, I was a City trader, Barry, but in between there, I went around Europe for a year learning. Then I was in the academy at Watford. Then A.D. Boothroyd was the manager, made me academy director. And I had people like Sean Dyche was my youth team coach, Malky Mackay, really good people, top people, yeah. Then Brendan Fainough came in after A.D., etc. So I always thought, I never had a playing career like Stephen, Joe, I never had that type of career. So I always thought I'd be in youth in the academy. And then I was asked to go to Brentford to coach the first team for 6 months because they were 18th in League One. We did well. And then I wanted the job, but Matthew made me technical director for a couple of years, which Uwe was the manager. And then he phoned up when Uwe left for Wigan, Barry, he phoned me up and said, do you want to be manager?
Brilliant.
And that was it.
How long a period was that then for you started doing your licenses to you got your first job?
I came back from overseas and didn't even know what a license was. I did my A license in 2007-8. I did my B license quickly in 6 and quickly got A, 1 and 2 done. So probably I left the City in 2004, and in 2011 I was coaching at Brentford. So probably 7 years. And then I got my pro license a couple of years later, 14, 15. So yeah, but you have to put it didn't. I'm making it sound I'm very lucky, very privileged, Barry, but it's a lot of hard work as well.
Yeah, you're a hard worker, though. I mean, I read that up when you were doing your City trading as well. You were getting up at like 5 in the morning and working till 7 at night and everything as well.
That's normal. That's 4:30 up in the morning. Get the 5. It's burned on my brain. 5:12 train. Get your coffee at Nero's. Go into the in the bank at like 5:45, and you're working through till 7. Getting home at 8. Calls from New York and Tokyo. Get up again at 4:30 and go.
So
that was
in good stead, though, didn't it?
Yeah, he looked after you, Barry. But you know what? It gives you a work ethic. I loved it. I loved the competition and the competitive element. So I loved all of that as well.
That's brilliant. So how would you describe here? How would you describe your footballing philosophy?
I believe in players having the freedom to enjoy and express themselves. That's that. If you had to put it into a nutshell, that's what I believe. If you recruit the right players right well, and you work with them, you give them the platform, you give them the showcase, i.e. give my box, for example, to go and enjoy yourself. I don't mean that in a fun, playground type way. I mean that good players enjoying what they're doing, going to work. Whatever job you do, Barry, if you enjoy it, if you're a bricklayer and you enjoy doing your job, or you're a cab driver, you enjoy it, then it's a better end product.
100%. Yeah, it's the environment.
Yeah, it's the environment, and the environment for me is everything. The environment you create, which gives a player the best chance of success. So my football philosophy in terms of bigger picture is absolutely that. Make sure you give them the best chance of success and enjoying their football.
Yep, works a treat. So which managers or teams have inspired your tactical approach?
It's too easy to say the obvious ones. You look at Barca versus later on in 2010, that team, and you look at Sir Alex, and you look at the great. I probably as a kid growing up, I would say it was probably the Liverpool team of Hansen and Dalglish. That team.
That was the Scottish team, eh?
Yeah, Souness, etc. When you look at that team, it was magnificent. Kennedy at right back, Phil Neal at right back, Kennedy at left back, Ray Clements in goal. And you think of the centre halves, and then you're going through it, and what a team that was. Yeah. And when I think really young, when we didn't have a TV, and it was on radio on the European nights, and you heard it on the radio, it was unbelievable.
Brilliant, eh? Loved it. So different times now. I mean, here's us, like I said at the start, we're sitting 3,000 miles apart, chatting over Zoom, but 30 years ago, the kids nowadays have no idea the little access they had to football.
No, but that was a treat. If you remember, Sports Night used to come up on the familiar like theme tune to it. And occasionally my dad would let me stay up to watch Sports Night. That was like Christmas morning because you're watching, it was magnificent.
Brilliant. It's so different now. But right, so I've got another question here for you, Mark. How do you manage so many different backgrounds and personalities in the dressing room? Does that come back to, again, making them happy? But so many different personalities that you've dealt with.
I think anyone will tell you now, Barry, any head coaches, managers that you speak to, is the easy bit is out on the grass. I'm saying easy. That's the most enjoyable bit. The bigger picture is the man management behind the scenes, because you're dealing with the higher you go up the game, you're dealing with very wealthy young guys, really wealthy young guys. You've got agents, they've got people around them, and you've got to deal with various characters. And you need to make them. I'm not saying you make, that's the wrong term, but what I'm saying is that you need to develop relationships with all of them. And they need to know that you're there for them, and they need to know that you care. That's the most important thing. Whatever, they could be the hardest, whatever, they could be the most, whatever it is, they need to know you care. But again, for me, that doesn't change. In the dealing room in a bank, every trader needed to know the boss cared. The boss is going to take you to places, in terms of football and training and challenge you. The boss is going to take you, hopefully, to places they wouldn't go on their own. Yeah, that's it. And they got to trust you. They've got to like you, trust you, and know that you look after them. So, that's a key part for me.
Yeah. Is it? Can I ask, how involved are you in scouting and recruitment when you're a manager nowadays?
Yeah, they say obviously you have directors of football. I find I've had a conversation this morning with someone, a media guy in Scotland. But the directors of football, when I did it at Brentford, I was in charge of the first team, academy, medical, sports science, analytical, coaching. I was in charge of everything. And you could set the environment, set the philosophy, loved it. And always thankful to Matthew, the owner, for that. But now if you ask most Rangers fans, for example, or any club fans, they'll say, technical director, he signs the players. So you become a de facto head of recruitment.
Yeah.
So that's, as a manager, you're the one who's got to work with the players every day. You're the one who's got to pick the team. I still believe, for me, absolutely, that the manager has the final say, because he has to work with the players every day. But I think it's with the technical director, it's with the owner or CEO, it's with the manager and his assistant. And same with Brentford, you have a panel, you meet technical panel, you target, you show your targets, you narrow it down to 3, you do your due diligence, you do your character test, everything else, and you make your call. But at the end of the day, if I'm the technical director and you're the manager and you don't want this player, I'm not going to force him on you.
No, and that's trying to find the right balance as well. But I mean, God, if you're looking for a job in football nowadays, there must be so much easier, because there's far more positions available now.
You say that, but there's far more people who have got access to. Suddenly, you're seeing people now on the data, for example, many of whom have never played the game.
No.
I've interviewed people who have grown up on these PlayStations, and they play it on FIFA, whatever, and their entire knowledge is based on that. And you say it can't be. Trust me, it is. So there are more positions, but there's more people looking for careers, more people coming out who love football and see an opportunity. If I put an offer out for an academy coach, bang, 50 CVs before I even blink, 100 CVs by the morning. So, it's a tough. There's
more jobs, but there's more people wanting the jobs, like you say as well.
I think it's a really tough environment, especially for British coaches. Really, really tough environment.
There's so many coaches I've spoken to recently, and I mean, I'm not going to name drop, but they're all there in my catalogue of different people I've interviewed. And there's so many good managers now that are looking for a job, and they just can't get them, because, like you say, there's so many other candidates.
Well, you have foreign owners come in, which is great, and they have different perspectives, and they bring the money into the game. Fantastic. But then foreign owners will bring in foreign coaches, foreign technical directors, and then they go and look for foreign players. And, if you speak to, for example, Gareth Southgate, as his tenure went on, the percentage of Premier League players available to him for selection was getting less and less and less, almost by the month. Yeah. So it's a tough. We watch games, we watch cup finals, and I'm very patriotic, and you watch cup finals and you see the national anthem, for example, being played, and then you look and you say there's only 3 English.
Yeah, aye. It was the same in the Scottish Cup final a couple of weeks back. Yeah, it was the same. It was like you try to find this people that are. It must be difficult because then the Scottish players, and you're noticing the same in England, they're having to play their trade abroad, and countries like Italy are benefiting greatly from it with McTominay and Billy Gilmore, etc.
You look at McTominay and Gilmore. Wow. But it just shows you that there's this perception that British coaches and British players don't travel well and nonsense. And I don't know Scott McTominay, but obviously an outstanding season. And Billy Gilmore, I do know from Rangers, but outstanding. To go over there, win the title, and to be up for the Ballon d'Or, incredible, unbelievable achievement by Scott. Yeah.
And Lewis Ferguson as well. I mean, he went over there, and that was a lot of ones that back in Scotland, the fans, and I don't know if the board and the manager, but certainly the fans kind of turned their nose up to that a wee bit, like, oh, he's with Scott, he's in Scotland, we'll deal with it later. And then look at the careers he's went over to had in Italy as well. And
that's tough. People travel, there's this negativity. The same over here in terms of the MLS and USL. And there's this perception that in the 80s and 90s, a lot of British people went over there, students doing quick football camps. If you had a British accent, you could do football.
Yep. No
qualifications. And there's a bad name created for British coaches. And it's really hard still to get rid of that stigma. But, I look at a lot of British coaches who are highly qualified, highly experienced, would really raise the levels of the game over here. But it's again, it's really tough to break into.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Can I just, before we move on to your time at Rangers, can I ask, how do you deal with media and fan scrutiny? I always find that's quite an interesting question.
How do you deal with it?
Walk off it, or do you just switch off it?
There's no bigger club than Rangers, really. You look at the trouble is in Scotland, especially. Let me use that as an example, and I'm sure obviously it'd be the same at the big Premier League clubs or whatever. Is that you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So I'm quite level-headed. I think I'm quite calm. I show my passion for scoring and that, but I'm not gonna race around in front of the iBox and give it. I'm not gonna
knee slides and that. No.
I won't do that, because I think for me, you've got to earn that. When Jurgen Klopp does it at Liverpool, he's won the European trophy. That's different. I hadn't earned that at Rangers yet. Good first season, but I hadn't earned that. But for me, if you say the Rangers, like, what's your game? I want a good performance. I want a good performance. I want to see us go out there. I want to play like Rangers play, blah, blah, blah. They'll say he lacks desire and ambition. If you go and say we're going to go out there and smash them, they're going to say the arrogance is
too cocky. You can't win either way.
Right, you look at it and everything is just, the media, they're out for you. I'll tell you one thing. This is this is perfectly honest. When I landed at Glasgow Airport, and I've said this to a couple of people, a really good journalist in Scotland met me at the airport. And he said to me, nice to meet you, introductions, he went, don't ever forget there's a good cop and a bad cop in Glasgow. Right? And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, right now, Ronnie Dyler's a bad cop. Whatever you do, you'll be all right. But watch out when it turns. I'm like, I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. And honestly, Barry, Ronnie was winning the SPFL. They might win 2-0 away and they'd go Celtic scrape through. We might go to Kilmarnock and have a horrible performance and win 1-0, and they go Rangers romp to victory. And then when Brendan came in, suddenly, I went, told you. When we drew Hamilton, the first Premier League home game, and we got back up and drew Hamilton, and you go, well, first game, a massive crowd, and players were nervous, and the media slaughtered us. And then you realise this good cop, bad cop was happening. In answer to your question, you've got to find a way of dealing with that, because if they're going to go for you, you've got to find a way to maintain dignity, but also stand up for yourself as well. Yeah,
and obviously trying to at the same time not get caught up in things, and watch your answers and what. It's so different nowadays,
You've got to be so careful, so careful.
So I'm going to take you back to June 2015, nearly 10 years ago already, when you took over for Stuart McCall. How did you first hear the interest in Rangers, and how did that all come?
Well, Davy Weir, who I can't speak highly enough about, magnificent individual. Obviously, his history of Rangers, of course. But Davy was with me at Brentford, and we'd done well. We got promotion with Wolves, and we got, we had the third smallest budget, and we got to just miss the Premier League. We got beat by Middlesbrough in the playoff. So we had a good season. Stock was high, and I had a couple of really big clubs. I was very lucky. I had a couple of really big clubs coming in, talking to me. And then Davey just said to me one day, Rangers are interested. You need to have a chat with them. And at the time, Rangers were where they were.
Yeah.
You know, these are big clubs. These now are 2 Premier League clubs. They weren't at the time, but they're big clubs. And I was like, okay. And then it really was, I had a first meeting, which was fine, but still I had these 2 big clubs. And it was my son. Honestly, I've said it before so many. My son played me a clip off of YouTube, Penny Arcade. Rangers v Celtic 3-2, and it's an 8-minute clip, and he put it on the TV and just went, listen to this. My son was a pro and played, and he went to me. At the time, he was Jack was 22, and he just said to me, hey, you can't turn this down. If they offer you this job, you can't turn this down. And you see that, Barry, I was like, wow. Met them again. They flew to London again. And then you realise, and David Weir was obviously excited as well, because it's what he thinks of the club. From the first moment you join the club, from the first moment you pull up, wow, magnificent.
Brilliant, amazing. So what attracted you to the job, especially in 2015 when the team was still in the Championship? It was like what you said, it was just you couldn't turn it down.
Look at Ibrox. Look at Ibrox, look at the history. You know, I grew up, I remember, I'm sure it was Red Star Belgrade or something like that. I can't remember now, but one of the great European nights, you had Rangers playing in it, and the crowd and the atmosphere, and you know, and those type of teams. Then you know, you had the Belgrade's Red Star was a big club,
and you couldn't scout them like what you can nowadays as well. You just knew them.
I'd just listen to them on the radio and the football and Rangers history and the likes of John Gregg and you know, the great players. And obviously, you know, more recently, the likes of when the Gascoigne and Trevor Stephen and all these guys have come through. Yeah. And you look at Terry and you look at it and go, wow, look at these players. And then it's Rangers, right? And then you look at it and go, you get one chance to manage a club like that. And that was once you saw that was a no-brainer.
You know, chuck your name in the hat again for the job that's coming up.
I've said this many times. You know, I was so annoyed. It still irks. I can't tell you how much it irritates what they did. We were second in the table in the Premier League, and we hit every target. And because of the gap to Celtic at the time, it still irks. Any manager who's got a brain cell would walk to Glasgow to be manager of Rangers, and that's my honest opinion.
You've got a good reference for the job, if anything else, then, Mark.
I'm telling you now, it's you use that word privilege. People use it too lightly sometimes, but for me, every day you manage Rangers, is a privilege. Simple as that.
It's amazing the effect it has on you. You know, lasting effect as well. Can I just ask, how aware were you made of the club's expectations and pressures before accepting the role?
I was told that promotion was non-negotiable in year one. Bear in mind, Barry, on the first day there was 9 players. The chairman I think had released 13, and there was 9 players. And I asked the academy to send someone up, and by chance they sent up, just because he was available, was Barry Mackay. Barry Mackay made 10. We had enough for a 5-a-side, literally in the first, obviously do work, but the 5-a-side was, and then that was how we saw Barry, and the rest you know about.
And it must have been so hard joining such a club that was so big, but so little at the time as well. You know, the key factors were missing. Your players, your coaches working inside you. Money was
that's what people don't. We beat them in that semi-final that everyone talks about. Yeah. But 99 times out of 100, they're going to win that game.
Yeah.
You know, if I look at the midfield of Don Ball, Jason Holt, Andy Halliday, 3 top fellas. But the combined wage of those 3 was probably less than half of one of the Celtic players in midfield. Less than half, the combined of it. And so it was that type of thing. So you go to Rangers and we had money, you know, there was no money.
No.
And everything was, you know, I think we paid money for Tavernier and Waghorn combined. I think Tav was like 220,000 was the highest we paid. Fodringham free, all these, Danny Wilson came in free, Holty free, you know, Andy Halliday free.
But you can see the careers that these players have went on to had as well. Even, I mean, you've got Tav still at Rangers, but other than that, you can see the careers that these players had. So he's picked up some gems. I mean, how did you scout these players in?
Obviously, I had Frank McParland, again, can't speak highly enough about Frank, top individual person, full stop, and his knowledge is so deep. But between Davey, Frank, and myself, that's how we always worked it. We just looked at players, and if one of us disagreed, we moved on to the next one. And that's a level of trust and a level of belief and a level of friendship that you need to do that job. So yeah, we got some good players. You know, Wes Foderingham went on back in the Premier League after leaving Rangers. You know, you look at Waggy and where he went in the Championship and whatever. And you look at Andy Halliday still playing, Holt's still playing, Don Ball.
Liam Kelly's went full circle. He's back again, eh?
I got Liam Kelly at QPR, and he's come back to Rangers again. So again, Liam outstanding, worked with Wes, but had good stuff. Jim, you know, people like Dave Lavery, who's still there, magnificent. Disco, magnificent. Jim Stewart, magnificent. So yeah, some good stuff, really good stuff as well.
During your time there, you had Andy Holiday as well, yeah?
Yeah, we signed Andy.
What was Andy like as a character? I mean,
if you want a top character, someone who cares passionately about Rangers, will give you everything every day, and is just a joy to have in the squad, Andy Halliday.
Yeah, brilliant. I think the club needed that at the time as well, eh? That was
you needed. Yeah, and the Rangers fans needed to know players that cared, because you could easily turn around and go, who are these British boys, Tavernier and Foderingham and Waghorn and Kiernan, and who are these boys?
Yeah. And
they could easily have said that. They didn't. They were great with them, but you needed people like Kenny, like Lee. I mean, Lee Wallace, Kenny. You know,
I've got him written down as well. Yeah,
I can't speak highly enough about them. But you needed that. But Andy Halliday was just a genuine fan. If he hadn't been playing on the pitch, he'd have been in the stands.
Yeah.
So
he does a podcast as well. You've seen his podcast?
I haven't seen Andy's podcast. He can talk, by the way. It must be about 4 hours long, that podcast.
But he's still going. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's signed with. Was it Motherwell? He was with. I'm sure it was with Motherwell, and for a while.
He's done really well. He's done really well.
Yeah, he's been done. So I've got here. You were known for being a more possession-based, a more possession-based style to Rangers. What inspired that approach?
Just how I believe in the game. Brentford teams, my youth teams at Watford when I was younger, I had a belief in players enjoying themselves, getting on the ball, being brave in the decision making, not reckless but brave, and playing forward, etc. And making sure we attacked in numbers, but we were solidly defensive behind, and that was it. So I just, you know, the way the Brentford team played, we excited a lot of people and got the fans, and we got good success. Hence, I got the job. But it was the same at Rangers. Just give players a belief that they can go and play. You know, let them know they're going to make mistakes. You know, if you're asking a centre half to take a ball in a tight area and he makes a mistake, you can't then rollick him. He's human. He'll learn. You know, what you want is players to learn from their mistakes, and we had that. So I think we drilled it into them. David, myself, Jimmy, drilled it into them from the very, very first day about what we wanted. And I think, you know, the first opportunity to show it really was Hibs away in the Cup. And I think it was 6-2 at the end. And I think that's the first time we went 1-0 down, I believe, to Jason Cummings. Yeah. And then we just battered them. And I think that's the first time the Rangers fans sort of got excited about what might be.
Yeah. And I mean, how did it feel to win promotion and return Rangers into the Premiership?
Yeah, it meant so much. I mean, the cup final, the cup semi-final, I knew what that was, because that was beating Celtic. That's the first time for a long time.
And to beat them off the back of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. To beat them in that manner and to deserve to win on the day, I think everyone agreed with that. Yeah. I think was great for the blue side of Glasgow. And then obviously to get promotion led by 11, 13 points, whatever it was, that was Rangers back at the top flight. And that was just yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word. I think that it just meant so much to get them back where they needed to be. Simple as that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, watching the way you were putting your playing style across, you were a fan, you were a fan, and then you were trying to put that across. So the fans related to that as well, Mark. And I think that's what everybody took on. They could see what you were working with.
Yeah, the fans have been great since then. You said a couple nice things, which I appreciated before the chat. But the fans have always been great. And even now, walking down the street the other day, I was back home walking down the street, but where my daughter lives, and I get a Rangers fan stop me, said some really nice things. They just said, "Oh, great," and why did you leave? And I said, "Why did I leave? I didn't leave. I was, and that's the perception of that is no one would ever leave Rangers. You don't leave Rangers.
No,
simple as that.
So, I mean, between the Scottish Cup semi-final win and winning the league, they were your two highlights. What was the sort of lows? What did you really feel? Apart from obviously near the end when you left.
Obviously, the biggest low was how the club acted in the end, and the cup final. The cup final really was because there's a lot of media stuff written. If you remember on the day we named 14 players, and they said Rangers playing games. That's the only 14 we had. People like Johnny Walsh, Ryan Hardy, these type of young players, Jordan Rossiter, they were being out on loan or were injured, and we literally, the players were out on their feet. And the biggest problem we didn't deal with, if I look back in hindsight, was there was a 3-week gap between our last game and the cup final, and we couldn't find a game, Barry. We had to go down in the end. We flew down to Tottenham, and we played Tottenham's B team, like under 23 team, because I knew John McDermott so well, and
prep for a final.
Yeah, that we couldn't find a game. So that was tough, but no excuse. We're 1-0 up with minutes to go, and you should see the game out. But that's probably the biggest regret, because that would have been proper silverware on top. It would have been a nice double. The league and the cup would have been a great double for the fans.
Won the Challenge Cup though, eh?
Won the Challenge Cup, and people mock that, and in the same way they mock like the Europa Conference, they mock it. But you can only play what's in front of you, and you can only beat what's in front of you. So the boys did that, and the final against Peterhead, I remember Rangers filled the stadium. I think Rangers had 49,000 and they had 1,000 Peterhead, and that was just a great day because the fans enjoyed it. A great, Tav's goal, his screamer, and the fans enjoyed it. And it was a first piece of silverware after what they'd been through as well.
It's such a tough time when you joined Rangers. Can I ask you, how important a signing do you feel James Tavernier was? I mean, he's still going yet, but I mean, you must take so much pride watching him in Europe and some of the achievements he's had.
He was a no-brainer in terms of recruitment. Frank Davey and I knew that, but I'd seen a closer look at him when he played, and he gets forward and he's athletic and he's so mobile, and his biggest threat is his attacking prowess. And people pick up on his defence, but his biggest form of defence is attack, as you know. So it was a no-brainer to get him. And when I got him, I was absolutely, him and Waggy was delighted to get those two.
That was when you sort of made the team step up a level. They were a sign.
We had them. You had Danny Wilson, Rob Kiernan. You had Wes Fodringham. Then you're getting in, as I said earlier, the likes of Holty and Andy. And then you already had two top class players in Kenny and Lee. So to have them and the influence they had on the younger players, if you speak to like a Don Ball or a Gideon Lalam, another free loan from Arsenal, 18 years old, Don Ball, nothing from Tottenham. When you speak to those guys about the influence that Lee and Kenny had on them, speak to Tav about how Lee helped him, speak to Rob Kiernan about Lee and Kenny, how they helped, you'll see the influence they had. And when they left Rangers, and there's that murky side about the media, that was so scandalously wrong, because there's two top guys who care passionately about the club.
It's even now. I mean, see James Tavernier, that's 10 years he's been there, and he's on for a testimonial and everything. But you look at the squad and the team and everything, and the way Rangers are now, for even when you joined 10 years ago, it must be the one regret, that you just couldn't join at a different time. You loved it.
But then again, you get the chance of promotion. You get the chance of what happened in the semi-final and the final. You get that, and how a certain individual acted, I'll never forgive that. But the fact was, you were very, very privileged to use that word again. So it's just, we wanted the chance to carry on, because I know full well we would have finished second that year. To get promotion and then finish second at Celtic, we would have got European football. We would have had more money, and it would have built. And what they did was, you can tell my voice still irked me every single day, because it was just, we were doing a lot of good work, and it was a way done that the fans didn't know he resigns. Utter bull.
No, you found out in Sky, didn't you?
Yeah, I found out in Sky on the ticket day, and then no one at the club answered my calls, and it was manipulated by we know who, and the whole thing was wrong. It wasn't becoming of a club of the stature of Rangers, put that way.
No, and we've seen that up until recent days. I mean, you've got the takeover coming up now, but how do you look at the takeover? You'll be keeping an eye on that, obviously.
Yeah, it's again, look at the American owners in the Premier League and the Championship. Look at the impact they've had. I hope very, very much that Kevin Thelwell is a really good guy. I know Kevin is an excellent addition at the club. So
what will he bring then? What extra will he be able to bring? Obviously, we don't know what about him.
Experience, knowledge, game understanding, relationships. He'll bring it all to Rangers, and if he's got the money to back it up, he'll obviously have seen that. And very exciting times, I hope, for the club.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to look, in better place for when you were 10 years ago. Obviously, to see the company now.
That's what you want to see. You want to see the
company. Questions regarding Rangers, right? This one is, I put this out there on, the social media and said, if you've got any questions, and this is the number one question, right? And you've bound to been asked it before. Do you still have your magic hat?
You know what? When we came away from, it was a Hibs game, I think, right? And it was a drunk fan with a Warburton's thing. Another one had a traffic code on his head.
That's right.
And some mates of mine got hold of that, and I went down for one of them their birthday, and they all had these bread wrappers on there. So have I got one? No, but it was a great fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it was brilliant. You got a message for the Rangers fans?
Yeah, it's for me, it's always a thank you, because they were good to me, and Davey and Frankie. They were always good. They were loyal. When you have some tough times or whatever it may be, they were always loyal. And I can't thank them enough for that, because, some fan bases can be critical and turn. They never did. And it was just, as I say, it was a privilege to be manager there. And I haven't been back, funny enough. I haven't been back. And I'd like to go back and maybe Tav's testimonial just to see him. Might be a good one. But no, the fans were magnificent. So just a sincere thank you from me.
That's brilliant, mate. Brilliant.
That's right.
How do you see the Scottish game going forward as a result of US investors? Sorry.
I just think they've got to see a return on the investment. The reason you're getting American investors coming in and still doing it is because they see a return on investment and growth potential of British clubs. It's got to be there. They're not going to just come and buy a little backwater club and for the sake of it. There's got to be a reason why they're doing it. And there's still the growth there. And then you look at Champions League and you look at Europa League and Premier League, and the money's getting, was it 180 million now or something? And they've got potential if you get Scottish clubs in Europe and the growth and the sale of players. So I think you're gonna see it. You're not going to see it without being rude. I don't think you're going to get American investors come in and buy tiny clubs in League One England and Scotland. I don't think so, but they obviously see a return on investment still.
Yeah, you can see the money filtering down over the years. The Premiership was where it all was, and then there's not so much, but there's money in the Scottish League, and it's gradually starting to filter down. And you can see players in the Championship are leaving for like 50 million.
I know. It's incredible what's going on. It really is.
Would you ever consider a turn to Scotland in any capacity, whether it was Rangers or an team?
I'm very lucky I've come over here on a long-term, really exciting project, because quite frankly, the market was tough for British coaches. I see, without being arrogant in any way, very respectful, my CV is really strong. And yet you get looked over for younger foreign coaches and you go, well, how's that happened? But it's the market. You can't moan about it. And they're just guys looking for a job as well. So good luck to them. But yeah, you look at, I want to work. I just enjoy being busy. I love the game. I enjoy being busy. It'd have to be the right role for me that I hear that challenges you to, it just challenges you. I like being challenged. I like, being busy. I like making decisions. So yeah, you always, as I say, for me, you've got to be excited by whatever you do. Very simple as that.
And you're a sporting director, is that correct?
Well, yeah, I'm head of soccer over here. So I'm in charge of the men's professional, the women's professional, the elite academy teams. The academy, give you some idea, there's 10 or 12,000 children in the academy. So they bought the academy. We bought the academy. That's one academy. 10 to 12, I think it's 10 or 12,000 now they've added and increased it. But it's a pay-to-play model. So 10 or 12,000 children paying a couple of $1,000. It doesn't, it's a $20, $25 million business.
It's mad, yeah.
And you look at it, and that's just one club. So the potential over here is enormous.
Yes, I mean, obviously the profile's been massively, lifted in the last few years with your players like Messi and all that. But even mentioning Gerrard was out there as well for the latter part of his career as well.
Yeah, it was. But you look at it, you realise that there's 380 million people over here, and there's no doubt there's opportunity. There's players over here. I think there's a massive market for British coaches as well and technical staff. So there's a lot going on. There's a Club World Cup this year. There's a World Cup next year. There's Olympics soon after. The focus of the global game is going to be on the US for the next 3 or 4 years. So
I think they're going to be targeting the World Cup. They're building up to it. In the next, the World Cup's every 4 years. But you'd like to imagine in the next, say, 5 World Cups, America are really going to be giving it a go then,
Yeah, we've got Mauricio Pochettino. You've got a world-class manager in charge of the US men's national team. So it's going to be a big ask for him. If you look at how many of the top play in the top 200 in the world, how many American? I think it's only one. So it's a tough ask, but It's a home World Cup. If you galvanise this fan base, you're starting to see it. You're starting to see it in the NWSL and the MLS. The USL's model is going to work really well as well. The USL are going to get bigger and bigger and challenge and be alongside. There'll be Division 1 status for men and women. Women already are. So you've now got clubs and leagues which are really growing and fans getting behind them. So there's a lot of change going on, Barry, over here, which is
exciting.
Really, it's exciting. And young players, you know, I'm not talking about Premier League guys because they've obviously got different pathways. But if you're looking down a pyramid and you're saying, well, there's an opportunity over there, you know, be it university, be it going to the USL, etc., good players, it's a real opportunity because the quality of life is very high in the right clubs, and it's a real chance for you to do something different and take your career down a different path.
Yeah, and I think as well, you can get about it. You know, you're in this goldfish bowl, you know, in the Premier League and obviously up here in Scotland as well. Whereas you can kind of go about yourself a wee bit better in America.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. You can walk around. I used to go with David Moyes and I. As I went to West Ham, David and I would play golf down the coast in Naples, and we'd walk around, and no one have a clue who he is. You know, and no one would look and just go around, and it's just they don't, because they've got basketball, you got the NFL, which is huge. But the big turning point here will be when the kids who currently choose baseball, basketball, football, choose soccer. Yeah, that's when this game will, the tipping point will go then.
Yeah, there's a lot of players coming through now. You can see it even, you know, in Scotland. I'm sure like Austin Trusty, he went through Sheffield first, but he's up here now, and he came through the academy in America. Yeah, and it's starting to develop. And I think as well, clubs are starting to put their trust in American players, where it kind of used to be frowned upon. Name a good American football, you know. Whereas now, you know, there's so many different names. You rattle off Alexi Lalas before, and that was it, really.
No, there's players. There's 280 million people. You know, the quality of coaching needs to keep improving. British coaches and European coaches, South American coaches, it needs to keep improving and helping the domestic coaches. But no, there's no doubt the potential is enormous, Barry.
Yeah, it's good. It's exciting. So, what player, past or present, would you have loved to have managed?
Oh God!
You mentioned Gascoigne. How would you get on with him?
I think Gazza, in terms of his character, David Weir obviously knew that. But in terms of talent, I was the other month. There was something on Italia 90, and I remember watching Italia 90, and when Gazza was at his pomp. He was still only, what was he, 21 or something? Yeah, magnificent. And it was just players like that. Because, of course, you can say Messi, you can say all of, you know, the world's had some magnificent players. But when you look at Gascoigne in his pomp, forget the off-pitch antics, just as a player on the pitch, what a privilege it must have been to play with him.
Yeah. He was the best player I watched. I mean, obviously I've seen Laudrup and all that as well, but, you know, the best British player I've ever seen was Paul Gascoigne by a mile. I
just think he's just his ability. You know, he was daft as a bush, but a talent, God-given talent. You know, because to be that good. And do you remember? I think in the Italia, did he nutmeg Koeman and then nutmeg him again?
He said to Lothar Matthäus, I'm sure it was Lothar Matthäus. It was one of the German midfielders, and they said that. He says, you're going to be up against it today. He says, I'm brilliant. And standing there with Lothar Matthäus at 20-year-old.
And that's what I'm saying, that fearlessness. But when he knows, and I remember, I think it was Grandstand, the old football show before Football Focus, and I'm sure there was an interview, and it was Jackie Milburn or someone said, I've just seen the next best player in the world. I'm sure Gascoigne was like 13 or 14, and I remember that going, the best player in the world. I think it was Jackie, or was it, if it wasn't, I got it mixed up. If it wasn't Jackie Moore, someone had came on and said, I've just seen the best, and sure enough, that was Gascoigne.
That was it, and it was different level, but I mean, what's next for you then? I mean, you've got this. You're over here in America. Is this full time then? Is this something?
Yeah, I've signed a long-term contract, and it's a big commitment, and it's a great opportunity, great projects, and really good people. It's Sporting Club Jacksonville, new franchise, as I say, men, women, elite academy, etc. Really good people. It's a soccer community, and there's 400,000 soccer fans here in Jacksonville with no pro team. So it's a massive opportunity. Stadium being built, everything, massive training complex. So it's a big project, and it's a huge.
When does the season run? What's the sort of time period?
Women start first in August. The men follow up in January. The women start first game middle of August and end of May. So it's the same as
it's the same setup.
European season. The men will start in March and finish in November. So that's a slightly different one. But the women already Div 1, which means they rank alongside the highest level, and the men go Div 1 in 27, which again puts them alongside the MLS. So the potential in the USL is staggering.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if you're getting back to Scotland, if you ever want to come back for a game, Mark, I'm sure you'd be well received over here as well.
Yeah, I'd love to, Barry. Got some great friends in Glasgow. I was lucky to meet some really good people. I've got to phone one of them actually after this chat with you. But yeah, just really good people. So I'd love to come back.
Well, make sure you give me a glowing reference and tell them to come on my podcast next time.
No problem.
But listen, Mark, I hope you've enjoyed it as half as much as what I have, because it's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much.
Barry, my pleasure. Nice speaking to you.
Yeah, I'll end it now, Mark, right? And if everybody could like and subscribe, that would be amazing. Thanks very much, sir. Cheers.